couple of things that you've got to be very mindful of. I feel as though when you look back over the last couple of months, it was certainly overbought. There was strong participation from hedge funds and they ramped prices up over that Northern Hemisphere summer. We've seen it tail off. The US dollar has strengthened dramatically over the last 6 months, 7 months. And in turn, that pressure to the downside, there's huge production coming out of Russia, China, naturally the Saudis and the US. And that's causing concern. So weakness, and as well as the Khashoggi issue a couple of weeks ago, Samina.
Peter, I think we've gone from being too worried about losing Iranian oil to now being too complacent. I think that's the word coming in from some of those analysts who track crude. Do you believe that global production can fill in the Iranian void if world economies were to slow down as we expect? And that's probably why prices have been sliding in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think you're right. I think that many analysts are realising that, that those sanctions biting on the 5th of November aren't going to be as great as because there's been a take-up on the other side due to increased production. And there's naturally concern that some market purchasers won't be able to stop buying that Iranian crude. I'm not saying, there's only a small amount. But the other side, of course, is that there's increase coming out of the Saudis. As I mentioned, America's producing at record levels. And all of that has taken all of the excess demand side is being met with plenty of production. So I just think it's just, it's coming to a point that, those times where it just corrects and it's corrected fairly heavily to the downside.
Peter, for now, I think the world is expecting that crude exports from Iran will drop, or rather production will drop to 1 million barrels. I don't think anyone's pricing in Iranian oil to go down to zero. Now, if that was to happen, then of course we'd run into concerns or a tighter supply kind of setup. I know it is midterm election in the US, and we've talked about this a few months ago. It would have been in the favor of the US running president to have crude prices at lower levels rather than being elevated. Do you think once midterm elections are out of the way, Iranian tariffs, Iranian restrictions kick in, Venezuela production continues to fall, we will see crude returning back to a winning trajectory? So what I want to understand from you is this just an interim sort of behavior where crude is declining, largely to do with US elections, and once that's behind us, who's to tell another $5, $10 from here on crude cannot be a surprise?
Okay. As we all know, President Trump's been attacking OPEC and Saudis on oil prices over those Northern Hemisphere summer. He's played very strategically because he realises in November that he's got those midterms. Taken on board that the crude price has corrected quite dramatically to the downside, and you've got to take also that stronger US dollar. Now, he's realising you've got unemployment numbers in the States at nearly record lows. You've got inflation relatively under concern with good energy pricing. It's not ridiculous. And the economy isn't doing that badly on a big picture scale. Certainly there's some concerns coming out of the Euro and a couple of other regions, and China's hemorrhaged a little bit. But overall, the picture is relatively good, and that's been very advantageous to these midterms. And I think that it's going to be a very fascinating week how they play out over the next 5 or 6 days from now.
Peter, overall, if you're talking about hedge funds and other money managers as well, they've continued to slash their bullish bets currently with regards to where oil futures go. Now, do you think this could constantly lead to this kind of downtick and drag with regards to where oil prices go, which in turn will be a positive? Because if we are reading about the long to short bets, they have fallen to a ratio of around 4:1 from a 26:1 that we saw in the month of July. Is this giving you a indication that the liquidation of bullish bets is showing a sharp reversal?
Well, there's naturally, when you've got the hedges, jumping out of those long trades, and the market can quickly turn, and, they can ramp them up. And that's been very evident over the last probably week or so. But, the heat's come out, trades are just, changed in a matter of seconds, and that's the beauty of the futures market and FX markets, of course. You go long 1 second, and then, 5 seconds later, you're shorting the market. And taking on board the overall picture as far as OPEC and so many other moving parts to the equation, then it's very favourable that it's been a big ramp down, and this all plays, again, strategically for President Trump and his whole, I suppose, method and signal to the market from consumers that crude is actually, fairly well contained at these sort of pricings.
Peter, one asset class that seems to be gaining, despite the fact that risk aversion has eased in the last couple of days, is gold. What is the trajectory on gold? Are you turning buyer and, of course, initiating long positions on gold? And also on the dollar index, that's cooled off a little bit in early trade this morning, largely post data points from the US. At 96.30, 96.40, what is the call on the dollar index? And hence, if you've got a view on the dollar-rupee pair as well, because I do get a sense the rupee is topping out at levels of 74 against the dollar.
Okay, first off, Samina, let's look at gold. And it's been, a good trade to the upside. It's oscillating a little bit at the moment. It's not violent and it's whipsawing. It's, fairly contained. I think there's further upward pressure in the short term for gold. I'm not going to say it's going to be a long run all the way to Christmas, but I think over the November we've had a lot of volatility coming out of October. And, I'm not suggesting that that's going to, dissipate over this coming month as far as US equities and global equities. Second point, US dollar. Well, look, it was 97.20, 97.30. We were trading it all night, having a look at it. There was huge, big spikes there, and then all of a sudden it settled down, got down to 96.30. So it was, pretty hard hit. But that's still relatively strong over the last month or so. We're at pretty high numbers, and it was just some profit taking. And then the Indian rupee pair. Well, I think that there's again continued strength to the upside. It's hard to pull a number. I was saying, months ago, we're going to see a 73, 74 handle. I'm not sure where it's sitting at the moment. I feel as though a lot of that market has really moved, and it'll probably just, a little bit of range bound over the short to medium term. I'm not seeing any massive breakouts on either side.